I want you to think about this. Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce, who was struggling.
Beyonce's Instagram account is the most unfollowed account on Instagram for the past week, and we all know why. Initially, she only lost 4 million followers to Eco 316, but we woke up today and she was at
Well, happy holidays. P. Diddy had a mental breakdown in prison, and Beyonce is heartbroken after the judge sides with Jay-Z's 13-year-old accuser. Let's get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the internet crossed the line from gossip to full-blown accusation theater. 1 minute fans were speculating in whispers. The next minute Bianchi's name, yes, that Bianca was trending next to Diddy's scandal like someone hit shuffle on chaos. And just when you thought it couldn't get louder, 50 Cent dropped what he called evidence, went silent, and let the timeline self-destruct. This wasn't a slow burn. This was an eruption. Screenshots flew like subpoenas. Old clips got dusted off like forbidden files. And suddenly fans weren't debating opinions, they were forming verdicts with Wi-Fi confidence and zero hesitation. The comment sections turned into courtrooms where everyone was a prosecutor and nobody cared about objections, because when Bianchi's name gets pulled into anything messy, the rules change. Jokes die, defenses harden, and the hive doesn't just wake up, it mobilizes. Meanwhile, 50 Cent sat back like a man who knows exactly how much damage a suggestion can do. This makes reality TV look like a children's choir, because this wasn't about facts anymore. It was about timing, insinuation, and why a single viral post can flip public perception upside down before anyone even asks, "Wait, is this real?" And trust me, this accusation storm is only getting started. The internet didn't wake up planning to accuse Bianca of anything. That's the wild part. This didn't start with a headline or a press leak. It started with interpretation. A post here, a caption there, a familiar face placed too close to an already burning controversy. And once Bianchi's name appeared in the same breath as Diddy's scandal, the oxygen in the room vanished. Because Bianca isn't supposed to be in mess, her name usually floats above drama like it's protected by an invisible force field. Rumors slide off, speculation evaporates, even jokes get nervous when they get too close. So when fans started connecting dots, real dots, imaginary dots, vibes, screenshots, energy, the reaction wasn't laughter. It was disbelief, and disbelief quickly curdles into obsession. The first wave wasn't accusatory. It was inquisitive. People asking why certain old clips suddenly felt uncomfortable. Why certain industry connections looked different in hindsight. Why silence, which is usually Bianchi's power move, suddenly felt heavier than usual. Nobody was saying she did anything. They were saying, "Why does this feel off?" That question spread faster than any claim ever could. Then 50 Cent entered the conversation, and that's when the temperature spiked. Because 50 doesn't accidentally post. He doesn't casually allude. When he hints at evidence, he's not offering a conclusion, he's offering chaos. And chaos online doesn't wait for context. Fans latched on instantly. Whatever 50 shared screenshots, captions, throwbacks, implications went viral not because of what it proved, but because of who was involved. Bianchi's name plus Diddy's situation plus 50 Cent's reputation for stirring the pot equals instant meltdown. The algorithm didn't even hesitate. Comment sections transformed overnight. People stopped asking, "What is this?" and started asking, "Why is nobody responding?" That's the dangerous pivot. Because once the internet expects a response, silence stops being neutral. It becomes suspicious by default. Fans began accusing not in the legal sense, but in the internet sense. Accusing her of knowing something, of being around something, of benefiting from proximity. None of it backed by facts, all of it fueled by association. And association online is treated like evidence when emotions are high. The phrase "connect the dots" became a weapon. Old interviews were replayed with sinister music. Friendly interactions were reframed as coded conversations. Every laugh was slowed down. Every pause dissected. The internet turned into a conspiracy factory running on recycled footage and unchecked confidence. And here's the thing, accusations don't need proof to trend. They need momentum. The moment a few large accounts frame the story as fans are asking questions, the dam broke. That phrasing gives people permission. It sounds cautious while opening the door to everything reckless. Suddenly everyone was just asking, but the conclusions were already being written. Bianchi's silence only intensified it. Normally, her refusal to engage with rumors is seen as regal, untouchable, above it all. But in this moment, with Diddy already under intense scrutiny, the silence read differently to a restless audience. Not guilt, distance. And distance invites speculation. Diddy's name carried gravity here. He was already trending, already controversial, already a magnet for suspicion. So when Bianchi's name drifted into that orbit, fans didn't accuse her of wrongdoing, they accused the situation of being too close for comfort. And closeness online is treated like complicity. That's how narratives get built without statements. Meanwhile, 50 Cent did what he does best: nothing. He didn't clarify. He didn't double down. He didn't retract. He posted, watched the explosion, and moved on. That absence of explanation elevated his evidence. From trolling to potential whistleblowing in the eyes of fans. Desperate for clarity, dangerous. Framing. Because once a provocateur gets recast as a truth teller, the rumor stops being entertainment and starts being treated like a prelude. People began searching for patterns, past feuds, old warnings, anything that made 50's hint feel prophetic instead of playful, and the accusations grew louder. Not unified, not consistent, but loud enough to trend. Some accused Bianca of protecting industry secrets. Others accused her of benefiting from silence. Others accused her fans of suppressing discussion. It wasn't about one claim, it was about the feeling that something was being hidden, even if nobody could say what. That's how online trials work. Facts don't lead. Feelings do. Blogs jumped in cautiously, using safe language to avoid legal disaster. Fans accuse. Internet reacts. Social media speculates. But repetition alone gave the accusations weight. The more it appeared in headlines, the more legitimate it felt to casual readers. Bianca still didn't respond. Her fanbase went into overdrive defense mode, pushing back hard, calling the accusations ridiculous, dangerous, disrespectful, pointing out the lack of evidence. And they weren't wrong. But defense has a strange effect online. It amplifies the story you're trying to kill, because the louder the defense, the more outsiders assume there must be something to defend against. Diddy's silence compounded it. With both names absent from the conversation, the internet filled the vacuum aggressively. Theories grew more elaborate. Accusations became more confident. Not because new information emerged, but because nothing shut them down. By the end of this phase, the situation had transformed. What started as a hint became a headline. What started as speculation became accusation. Not legally, not factually, culturally. Bianca hadn't been proven guilty of anything, but she had been pulled into the narrative. And narratives online don't need conclusions to cause damage. They just need attention. And attention was pouring in. The stage was set. The audience was restless. And the next wave wasn't going to be about whether the accusations were fair. It was going to be about how far they could go. The escalation hit like a dropped plate in a silent room, sudden, loud, and impossible to ignore. Once fans crossed the invisible line from speculating to accusing, the internet did what it always does next. It rewarded the loudest takes with the biggest megaphones. Algorithms don't ask for receipts. They ask for reactions. And reactions were everywhere. Memes exploded, but not the silly kind. These were sharpened, strategic, and unsettling. Screenshots framed like evidence boards. Red circles and arrows pointing at nothing and everything. Old photos recaptioned with ominous questions. Bianca reaction GIFs weaponized like courtroom exhibits. Humor didn't disappear, it mutated into something colder, more pointed, and way more viral. Celebrity reactions started trickling in sideways. Nobody wanted to touch this directly, so they did the internet version of whispering in a crowded room. Cryptic captions about truth, timing, and accountability. Likes on posts that felt suspiciously specific. Unfollows that got noticed because people were already watching too closely. Silence became a language. and everyone pretended not to be fluent. The fanbase wars turned vicious. The Hive went into full defense formation, swatting down accusations with speed and fury. They posted timelines, debunking threads, and calm but deadly explanations about why association isn't evidence and silence isn't guilt. Meanwhile, the opposing camp, never a single group, more like a swarm, kept insisting they were just asking questions, which somehow came with fully formed conclusions. That middle ground was chaos. Because the phrase "just asking" is a shield online. It allows people to accuse without owning the accusation. It turns speculation into performance art. And once that phrase caught on, the accusations multiplied without accountability. Nobody had to prove anything. They just had to imply. 50 Cent's evidence took on a life of its own. What started as a post became a relic. It got reposted, reframed, recaptioned, and reinterpreted so many times that the original context evaporated. People argued about what it meant more than what it showed. That ambiguity was gasoline. The less clear it was, the more powerful it became. Some fans started treating 50 like a messenger instead of a troll. They dug into his history, pulling examples of times he hinted at things before headlines broke. They cited old beefs, old warnings, old jokes that suddenly felt like foreshadowing. The narrative shifted from "he's trolling" to "he knows something." And that shift is Daw. His name was already trending for reasons unrelated to Beyonce, and that context made everything stickier. The accusations weren't about what Beyonce did, they were about what she might have known, what she might have seen, what she might have been adjacent to. That's how guilt by proximity works online. You don't need actions. You need overlap. Overlap became the obsession. Fans mapped out event appearances like crime scenes. Who attended what? Who sat near who? Who collaborated with who? Normal industry overlap was reframed as suspicious closeness. And once that lens was applied, every interaction looked loaded. The public outrage grew louder. Then weirder, people demanded statements, apologies, clarifications from Beyonce, from Diddy, from anyone with a microphone and a legal team. The fact that nobody responded only inflamed things. Silence, once again, was interpreted as strategy by some and avoidance by others. Media coverage escalated cautiously. Outlets leaned hard into phrasing like "fans accuse" and "social media erupts," distancing themselves from the claims while amplifying them anyway. It's a neat trick: report the reaction without endorsing the rumor. But repetition does its own work. The more readers saw the headline, the more legitimate it felt. Regardless of content, the tone of the conversation darkened. This wasn't funny anymore. Comment sections turned hostile. People accused each other of enabling harm, silencing victims, spreading lies, or blindly worshipping celebrities. The internet split into camps that stopped listening to each other. Each side claimed moral high ground. Each side thought the other was dangerous. And in the middle of it all sat Beyonce's silence. Every hour without a response felt heavier. Not because fans believe the accusations, but because the internet hates unresolved tension. It demands endings. When it doesn't get them, it invents its own. The accusations started mutating again. Some fans shifted from "she knew" to "she benefited," others from "she was present" to "she protected someone." The claims grew broader and vaguer, which paradoxically made them harder to disprove. You can debunk a fact. You can't debunk a feeling. The Hive's defense became more aggressive. And aggression has consequences. As defenses got sharper, outsiders framed them as suppression. Why are people scared to talk about this? Became a talking point. The idea that discussion was being shut down even when it wasn't fueled the narrative that something must be there. That's how suspicion feeds on resistance. 50 Cent stayed silent through it all, which only elevated his role. He didn't need to speak again. The internet had turned his implication into a symbol. Every time the rumor trended, his name trended with it. He had become the catalyst without having to carry the arguments. By the end of this phase, the situation was no longer about truth. It was about trust. Who defends trust when institutions stay quiet? The artist with decades of carefully guarded mystique? The mogul already facing scrutiny? Or the provocateur who thrives on lighting fires and watching people argue about the smoke? That question didn't have an answer, but it had momentum. And momentum online doesn't slow down. It looks for impact. The stage was set for consequences not legal, not factual, but reputational. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that lingers, because once accusations reach this volume, the final act isn't about clearing names. It's about surviving the fallout. The fallout didn't arrive with sirens or statements. It arrived with hesitation. The kind that creeps into conversations when people don't know what to believe but feel like something changed anyway. The timeline slowed. The jokes thinned out. And suddenly everyone realized this wasn't trending noise anymore. It was a reputational weather system that refused to move on. Bianchi's name didn't collapse under the accusations. It hovered. And hovering is dangerous because it invites constant re-examination. Fans didn't abandon her, they fortified. Think tanks of defense threads appeared overnight, laying out timelines, debunking claims, reminding everyone that silence has always been her language. But defense has a cost. The more energy spent protecting, the more oxygen the rumor consumes. This wasn't about belief. It was about proximity. People stopped asking, "Did she do anything?" and started asking, "Why is she being mentioned at all?" That shift matters. It reframes the conversation from guilt to contamination. And contamination, even imagined, leaves residue. Every performance clip got scrutinized. Every award appearance felt heavier. Not because anything changed, because perception did. Diddy's situation absorbed the brunt of the weight. His name, already under scrutiny, became the anchor point for everything unresolved. The accusations didn't add new facts. They stacked old questions. That stacking effect is brutal. It doesn't accuse, it accumulates. Each unresolved headline becomes context for the next. And context, repeated enough, becomes a narrative. The industry response was quiet but telling. And no dramatic condemnations. No sweeping defenses. Just distance. Invitations softened. Language tightened. Public-facing enthusiasm dimmed a notch. That's how reputational consequences show up at the highest levels: subtle, deniable, and deeply felt. Nobody wants to be adjacent to ambiguity when the internet is hungry. 50 Cent emerged exactly as expected. Untouched, unbothered, positioned. The conversation around him shifted from "is he trolling?" to "is he responsible?" And responsibility is a slippery concept online. He never made a claim. He never named an act. He floated implication and let the crowd do the rest. That's the modern megaphone. Suggest, step back, watch the echo turn into a roar. People began interrogating the culture. Not the claim. Is it ethical to amplify insinuations without evidence? Is it fair to demand statements from artists who don't respond to rumors by design? Does silence protect the innocent or embolden speculation? These questions didn't trend like memes, but they lingered longer than hashtags ever could. The fanbase was cooled into something colder. Not truce fatigue. When accusations don't resolve, people stop shouting and start remembering. The rumor didn't win. It didn't lose. It calcified into a reference point. A bookmark. A remember one that requires no explanation because everyone recalls the feeling if not the facts. That's the real damage. Not belief. Memory. Bianchi's image remained intact but altered at the edges. The fortress held, but the walls cast longer shadows. The cost of untouchability is that even the lightest touch becomes a spectacle. Fans notice how quickly the room went quiet when her name trended alongside controversy. Respect mixed with dread is a strange combination, and it changes how people talk. Diddy's public perception grew heavier without becoming clearer. Questions outpaced answers. Silence, once strategic, became exhausting. People didn't demand guilt, they demanded closure. And closure never arrived. The story didn't end. It thinned out, settling into comment sections and side conversations. Waiting for the next spark, media outlets pivoted with practiced caution, fewer headlines, more related coverage. A soft retreat that says, "We're not pushing this, but we're not forgetting it." The rumor didn't disappear, it migrated. From headlines to replies, from posts to podcasts, from trends to memory, the aftershocks were cultural. Fans debated the power of insinuation in an era where screenshots travel faster than context. Creators talked about algorithmic incentives that reward outrage over accuracy. Observers noted how easily implication becomes accusation when the subject is famous enough to feel distant and powerful enough to feel unapproachable. And that's the trap. Distance invites projection. Power invites suspicion. Silence invites storytelling. The internet moved on, because it always does. But it moved on changed. More cautious with some names. More reckless with others. More comfortable treating suggestion as substance when emotions run high. The lesson wasn't learned, it was normalized. The story didn't conclude with proof or denial. It concluded with a bookmark, a moment people will reference without restating, a cloud that never quite rains but never quite clears, a reminder that in the digital age, accusations don't need evidence to echo, they need timing, ambiguity, and a catalyst willing to light the fuse and walk away. And that's the cliffhanger. Because the loudest scandals aren't the ones that explode and fade. They're the ones that linger quietly until the next hint gives them permission to return. In this era, truth doesn't always end stories. Momentum does, and momentum is always one post away from starting all over again. And now don't go quiet on me, because if you made it this far, you didn't just hear a rumor, you watch how one suggestion can turn the internet upside down. This wasn't about proof. It was about power, timing, and how fast speculation can outrun facts when famous names collide. So, do what the algorithm understands, smash that like button like it owes you money and keep saying next Friday. Drop a comment and tell me where you stand. Did 50 Cent cross a line by teasing evidence, or did fans take the ball and sprint way past reality? And be honest, should Beyonce's name ever be pulled into conversations like this? Or has internet culture officially lost the plot? Don't sit on the fence. This comment section is where the real verdicts happen. And if you don't want to miss the next moment the internet spirals before breakfast, subscribe to Truth Tattle right now. Because scandals don't wait for confirmation, and silence doesn't stop speculation. Here on Truth Tattle, we break down celebrity chaos the moment it mutates, before narratives harden, and before everyone pretends they always knew. Turn on